Hello and welcome to the Great Legal Mind Show. It's my pleasure to have Mr. Sanjay Sen, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India, today with me. He was working with a top law firm before he went independent. He advises on many aspects of law, but he deeply specializes in energy and power sector. Um, it's highly political sector, but the one of the speciality of Mr. Sen, which is one of the rare speciality, is that he not only understands the legal aspect of it, but also the commercial and political aspect of it. Um, Mr. Sen, very warm welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I just wanted to actually start with your journey. So can you just give me a little brief on how you started in a corporate law firm and then you went into your own practice. So a little about that.
Yeah, I think the journey of all lawyers is quite similar. We start off uh, in different firms or with senior chambers. So I actually started off in Calcutta. I was attached to a chamber of Mr. S. N. Mukherjee, a senior advocate and barrister, primarily doing company law work. I also dabbled in criminal law. I used to do a lot of bail matters, bail, anticipatory bail, revision, quashing. And then I moved to Delhi. And before that, I did my master's. I went to Edinburgh University, UK. In Delhi, I joined a large corporate law firm. And those were the early days of FDI, foreign direct investment. The Narasimha Rao reforms had taken place, 92, 93. So that was the beginning. Then I got out. I set up my own firm, which we specialized in infrastructure laws. So we did laws relating to, uh, road projects, concessions, state concessions, uh, small airports, uh, seaports, ports. Uh, so we understood how the state and the private sector they work together. What was called the PPP model, public-private partnership. So we are trying to we worked in that space. I also worked for banks as lenders counsel for funding of infrastructure projects. So that went on till about 2013 when I became a senior advocate. My parent high court is Odisha. I grew up in Cuttack. And then after that, it's been a slightly different journey. But my infrastructure work started sometime in 2002-3. That's around the same time that the electricity reforms took place. So that's how it started.
Yeah. So and that's how the speciality into basically electricity that has come about. I mean, but before we get into that, I just also wanted to understand: are you coming from a lawyer family,
No,
or
no,
it's like
no. I don't think there's any. No, there's no family member who's from the profession.
okay,
My father was in the corporate sector. He was the president of a company. But I grew up in Odisha, in Cuttack, and my initial college school was in Cuttack. Then I came to Delhi University for my law. Then I worked in Kolkata High Court, and then I moved to Delhi back. So yeah, so nobody was from a law family.
and what about your transition from a corporate law firm to your seniors practice?
Huh. Corporate law firm is different. I already had litigation experience when I joined the corporate practice. I had worked in the Calcutta High Court, so I'd seen litigation. Then I tried my hands in corporate law consulting, uh, but I found that I was more cut out for court work, for litigation. But then when we were starting off, the broad distinction was civil law, criminal law, or you did matrimonial.
Right.
Regulatory laws was not really known to us, either in our law schools or even when we started practice. Regulatory laws as a special area of our work developed subsequently. It's still in the process of developing, and I keep telling youngsters that over the years, the jurisdiction of civil courts has been reduced by legislation where they've taken away various subjects from the ordinary courts or courts as we understand and put them in tribunals.
Absolutely.
So if you look at company law, the jurisdiction of high courts has been completely taken away in
Right.
phases. Initially in 92 reform, they created the company law board, but some work was still in the high court. Then now with the NCLT 2013, everything is gone.
Yeah.
So similarly, telecom, electricity, insurance, capital market, debt recovery,
Yeah.
tax was already there from the
Yeah.
40s. So jurisdiction of courts has been reduced in commercial matters.
Yeah.
They've wanted to
The
expedite.
appeal actually goes to then the high courts.
No. They have appellate forums. Like electricity has an appellate forum. The NCLT has an appellate forum. Competition has an appellate forum. Then the second appeal goes to Supreme Court. The high courts are bypassed.
High courts
Completely bypassed.
And now again, I think we are hearing a lot about the electricity bill. What do you have to say about that? Because I think there's a long history, and then there are lots of voices right now. We hear about that. So, what's your in general view about it before I talk about the opposition that's coming along and how valid or invalid that is?
Electricity has been a political subject. It's been a commodity which has been used as a political instrument, as a mode of appeasement. So that was the reason why the reforms took place. If you look at the object and reasons for the 2003 reforms, which took away the powers of the state electricity board and vested that power in an independent commission.
Right.
The reason behind that, and it is stated in the object and reasons of the bill, that to reduce interference of the state governments, to distance pricing, tariff fixation from government interference. Now the question is how much of the reform has actually worked. Two views. In the generation sector, post 2003, we have seen a huge growth. Private sector investment has come in.
Right.
But distribution was a state subject. That has suffered. The reform in the distribution sector has not really progressed to the extent that the bill or the 2003 Act had envisaged. As a result, in the last 20 years, 3 or 4 bailouts have happened. And even after the last bailout, today the distribution, the accumulated loss in the distribution companies across the country is about 5 lakh crores.
And it is because there's no payment coming from the state government. What are the reasons for these
multiple
losses?
reasons.
Yeah.
One is not the collection of, or first is the fixation of tariff. We have various categories of consumers. You have domestic, and in domestic you have different loads.
Absolutely.
Small homes, large homes, jhuggi jhopadi, slums. So the paying capacity changes. So you have different tariff for different categories. Sometimes depending on how much a person is consuming. If you're consuming more, then it progressively increases. Then you have industry, you have commercial, you have railway traction. But I think some statistics is 17% of our consumption is agriculture. And that has been a contentious issue.
Yeah.
How much are you pricing for agricultural consumption? Many states don't have a tariff in that sense. They have a horsepower-based tariff. So if you run your motor pumps, to pump water, you pay a fixed charge. Now, the agricultural sector, which is again political, it's a vote bank politics, which has affected the books of the distribution company, also their T&D losses. State governments are paid about 98,000. There's a report, 2 or 3 reports which have come out. One is by Reserve Bank of India, one is by PFC, and the other is by the Ministry of Power, MOP. If you see these reports, the figures are startling, because about 98,000 crores is the subsidy that is actually paid by state government to the distribution companies to reduce or to manage tariff. Now the states do not pay the subsidy in time, and then the problem starts. Now you have to understand how it works and why this bill, it's a reaction. This present amendment is a reaction to what's happened. The principal issue is that if the money that the distribution licensee are required to collect, they have to pay the transmission guys and the generators.
Right.
Now, because the way they have conducted the business, the generators are not getting paid on time. The average national level delay was between 290 days. Now it has crossed 300 days. It's about 380 days. So a bill of a generator is kept pending because
Gets paid after a year almost.
Which means there is a cost of managing your business.
Right.
So your working capital goes up, and that, so that has to be funded.
Right.
Forget about that. About 1 lakh crore is due to generators as on today. So this is going to create some kind of a discomfort. I won't say a fear, but a discomfort amongst investors. And we want to build this renewable story, the renewable narrative.
Right.
And we have commitments. Apart from a narrative, there is hard commitments.
Absolutely.
In COP26, we want to do that.
Yeah.
Now you need 30 to 40 billion dollars per year to meet that 500 gigawatt commitments.
Right.
We have got in 2021, 22, 14 billion.
Yeah. Right.
In terms of investment. You need 30, 40 billion. Now for that, you must assure the investor that his money is safe.
Yeah.
And the guy who will pay him is finally the distribution company.
Yeah.
So you need to reform that. And this particular bill is to reform the distribution sector primarily. There are other issues also.
Yeah.
But they want to somehow work in that space.
And so why there is so much of a discomfort in the state governments? Is it like cooperative federalism is at stake? What really is happening? And there is also a talk that because it is going to get privatized, the farmer subsidy is going to be at stake. Lots of things.
Yeah, it is a contentious issue.
Yeah,
distribution. This particular version of the amendment, which has been referred to a parliamentary committee, has centralizing features. Many ways. One centralization principle that is introduced is through this multiple licensing, where the Central Commission will have the ability to grant distribution license if a party wants to distribute power in more than one state. So then you don't have to go to the state, you can straight away come to Delhi and get a license. Now this is going to affect the business of the distribution licensee, because they perceive that the private sector will only service those consumers who are paying money. So what they call in this industry is called cherry picking.
Yeah.
They will cherry pick the good consumers and will not cherry pick or not touch the consumers who are, let's say, agriculture, or who is difficult to do your billing and collection because villages are,
Right.
So those consumers will not be served by the private sector. They have to be served by the state, which means the state's burden will go up. So that's one area. The other centralizing feature in the bill is a lot of power has been kept by the central government through the rule making provisions. So central government now can intervene by making rules which will affect or has the potential of affecting the business of the distribution company which are owned by state governments, except let's say few in Delhi and Bombay and some states. Most distribution companies across the country are state government owned companies. So the way they do business will get affected. I'll tell you a small example. The central government issued the late payment surcharge rules that if a distribution company has not paid uh, a generating company or a distribution licensee the tariff that is due, and after a particular period of time, they have an option to give a installment plan. And if they haven't opted for that, then the distribution licensee will not be allowed to go and access power from the power market, from the exchange. The grid access to will be taken away. They cannot then buy or sell power from the exchange. So this is a central rule, which is trying to discipline the distribution companies to pay money on time or agree on a installment payment. If you can't pay today, agree on an installment payment, 48 months. Now, this is something that distribution companies are objecting to. So these are the issues uh, which are being debated.
And let me ask you a little political question. I think the subsidy, or which is called the freebie or revdi or whatever, it's being done by a political party, and which is how they are gaining traction. I mean, one of the things, is there, is it like, somewhere to kind of restrain those kind of things by, state governments and all of that, and like, keep the control in central government's hands?
You know, across political parties, they have done it. It's not electricity, other commodities also
There are
have
lots of other commodities.
Yeah. So across political parties. Now the problem is when you are making a commitment to give free power or concessional power to a particular segment in your constituency, then you must identify the source of funding. Whether government will cut a check and pay, or whether it will be a cross subsidy where industry or commercial, the mall owners or the hotel owners, they will pay.
Right.
But money has to come.
Right.
Because the cost to serve
Yeah.
is an absolute cost.
And the generator needs to get
the
there.
payment. Otherwise, he will
They will-
end up in IBC.
Right.
Even the transmission.
Right,
Transmission today is
absolutely.
not only by the PGCIL.
Yeah.
There are private transmission companies.
Right.
They're bidding for transmission projects. If they are not paid on time, because one has to understand that any project, any infrastructure project, 70% is debt. 70, 75%. 30, 35% is equity.
Is equity.
So if 70% is debt, in any new project, you have a debt service which has to be maintained. You have to you pay the banks on time. Otherwise, the your NPA will happen and you'll be taken to for bankruptcy, for insolvency.
Absolutely.
So these are issues which needs to be addressed.
Okay. So let's see how it is going to go. I mean, I think winter session is not far away from here. Let me ask you another question that I think India, I mean, in the Paris Agreement that happened in 2015, we had a good comment. We were pretty much at the center stage. We made some progress, but I think we still have a long way to go. So where exactly are we on our renewable story? In terms of the investors' interest, is it there, or they have a cautious approach at this point of time? What is the kind of progress we have made on our own goals and commitments on renewables?
We have reset our goals, and I think we had a goal initially to have 175 gigawatts of renewable by 2022.
We are very short of it.
We are not very short. We had achieved about 160, 161, around that. I could be wrong, plus minus a little bit. Uh, but then you had COVID, 2 years.
Right.
So we have lost that. So you have to factor that in while you are coming to those numbers. But today the goal is 500 gigawatts by 2030. So that's the challenge, for which I mentioned that you need about 30 to 40 billion. These are economic studies, not
Right.
these are what is available in public domain. Uh, 30 to 40 billion dollars in terms of investment to meet that target.
Yeah.
So the question is,
Where are the investors?
where are the investors? Who are going to invest?
Yeah.
And what is it that they're looking at from a legal and policy perspective? I mean, how stable is our regime, the legal regime, the policy regime, or what we call the regulatory regime? How certain is it for the investors to feel confident to remain invested for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and then
Yeah.
So that situation is there. It varies from state to state. Many states things are not very good. Some states it's pretty good. It's pretty sound.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of money. I think that is expected to come from the sovereign funds of oil producing
Yeah.
nations, where they are committing certain amount of fund to green energy. What do you think? What is the kind of share India would be able to grab in future, and which states are more geared for that? And from regulatory standpoint, how robust are we?
Yes, I mean we have seen a recent uh, tie-up between Total and Adani's. That was a significant amount. I forget the number, 10 billion or something. Renew also has a tie-up. They've been able to draw 1 billion. So we are seeing that happening. Uh, the funds are looking at Indian partners who can actually roll out the project. So companies like Adani's, Renew, uh, the other companies are there, Acme and all. There are Greenco, who know the Indian landscape well. They know the risks in terms of regulatory, legal, political, the habits of the distribution licensees, the payment habits. They know. So they would be actually doing the Indian rollout, and the funds will come into vehicles that these companies, Indian companies, are setting up. So yes, India is geared up. Uh, we need a lot of money to meet our targets. I mentioned that. Uh, some states which are doing well in terms of of timely payment, like Gujarat, is very good. Maharashtra was good. There have been recent issues, but generally they're okay. Tamil Nadu has been a state of concern where payment delays have been affecting, uh, you know, investor confidence. Andhra has been an issue, uh, but otherwise, I think overall, uh, India is among a better destination for renewables, particularly solar. And we've seen prices coming down because there's more competition.
All right.
So, but we need, I mentioned 30 to 40 billion a year, which is a huge sum because we are about in the range of 14, 15 billion as of now. Pre-COVID, we were at 8 billion. COVID, it fell down. Now it's about 14 point something. Then we need much more to meet our targets. So yes, we have to
So
create a condition for
a
that.
lot of action basically in the energy sector, more from policy standpoint, from investment standpoint. So there's a lot happening in this sector. I
Uh,
just yeah.
Just that is one of the reasons why the amendment is being proposed, because they want to meet targets.
Right.
And one of the reasons is that, and also because uh, Reserve Bank of India and PFC, they have come out with very strong reports on trying to discipline the distribution sector. So that's an issue. Yeah, we try to
Yeah.
address that.
Yeah, I hope that happens because power. I mean, power situation in general has improved, but I think there's a long way to go over there.
I'll give you one small, figure. Our per capita consumption of power is one of the lowest in the world. So as the economy grows, our per capita consumption will grow. And with our size of population, you can imagine the requirement. China is about 5,000 kilowatt hour per capita. India is 1200. So that's the difference. The Western countries are much higher.
Yeah.
America and all are,
Yeah.
13,000.
Yeah.
So that's the difference. So our per capita, when we, build more cities, smart cities and all that,
And more industrialization, make in India, I think.
so our
all of that
requirement will
is
increase.
going
So
to-
we have to be, and now with Ukraine, gas supplies,
Yeah.
coal supplies being disrupted, so renewable is, renewable plus new technologies.
New technology.
You are looking at renewable, offshore wind, hydrogen, green hydrogen. These are new technologies for which you need money.
coming up. Absolutely. Coming back to the legal profession, um, I think the times have changed. I mean, between the time when you started your practice in law and today, what's your advice to the students who are passing out of the law colleges and to the young lawyers who are practicing? What message you wanted to leave away with them?
I think today's kids are extremely smart, very focused, and they've come from very good law schools, both the NLU series, whether
Right.
it's the national law schools across the country, plus private law schools like Jindals and others. They're doing very well. So they know what they want to do. Uh, the large metros like Delhi, Bombay, Bangalore, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Madras, they have law firms which absorbs a lot of these students. They have campus placement like in business schools.
Yeah.
So that has changed. So I think kids are, equipped to handle the new challenges. So as an advice, one would say, be positive. I think India is a good story. Whatever you do, have a medium-term perspective. Don't look at short-term. So invest in understanding a sector. I think the change will be that as you, with time to come, you would need to specialize. You would need to understand something very deeply. It's happened in medicine years ago.
Right.
So it's only a matter of time. It will happen in our profession. You can't be, a generalist
Yeah.
at a young. Later on, you can be a generalist once you have the experience of a sector. But you must have in your middle of your life, in your career, you must have some
Or deep specialization.
that gives you an edge.
Yeah.
I mean, people work in courts. We had criminal lawyers, civil lawyers, rent control lawyers, labor lawyers. Now it's getting further subdivided, subclassifications are coming in. So you need to know that. The other issue is people should they have to adopt technology. So the new challenges, I'm struggling. Now I see a lot of youngsters arguing very heavy cases without a single sheet of paper. So technology has come in. So
Somehow COVID has made us
Yeah.
more technology savvy,
Yeah.
more camera friendly, and all of that.
True.
That's one positive side of
Absolutely.
that entire pandemic.
And that should stay. We shouldn't give it up. That's a
Yeah.
positive side. So
Right.
it should stay. The other issue is, when you're doing commercial law, you must understand a little bit of finance and be open to understanding the nuances of technology, whether it's a road contract or an electricity project or a gas pipeline. You must be
Commerciality.
both commerce and the engineering bit. So it mixes today. You must be open to sitting with engineers, with chartered accountants, with finance experts to understand deeply, not to avoid and think that I'm a lawyer, I don't need to get into those subjects. You must invest in understanding finance, accounts, maybe a requirement to understand certain engineering parts, to make out a case in whatever, whether it's consulting, litigation, regulatory, that bit of openness in your mind has to be there. Then you're good. Then it's all your luck and what happens.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Sanjay, for being on the show, giving us your valuable time. And I look forward to speaking to you once again once the amendment bill actually
Yeah.
gets approved or moves to the next stage. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you. Thanks.
That was Mr. Sanjay Sen on the Great Legal Mind Show. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back with another interesting personality soon. See you soon.